Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody, the podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I'm really thrilled to have Thomas Pierce on as a guest. Thomas is the founder of the Children Oncology Support Fund, and they have an upcoming event called the Aspen Snow Ball. So I thought this would be a really fun segment. It's also a newer event that's gotten some traction really quickly. So for that reason, but also for anyone who has an organization in a market where residents may live part-time or spend their vacation every year, how to get them involved and attend your event. So I think this is going to be a really fun conversation today. So with that, Thomas, welcome. And I'm just so thrilled to have you here as a guest.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. I'm happy to be here, and thanks for bringing me on.
Absolutely. So talk about what motivated you to start the Children's Oncology Support Fund.
COVID really pushed me across that line, but what really motivated me was the loss of my friend, Pamela Johnson. I saw after she had lost her life to Hodgkin's lymphoma, I saw the financial and emotional toll it took, not just on her, her family, and those closest to her, and of course, her best friend, but really the community as a whole. And that really hit me. So we were both 28 years old. I started to get involved with other organizations in New York City, where I supported in building next gen communities for a variety of other organizations. And through that, I really got a bird's eye view on how to champion a community and bring people together and the impact that could have. While living in New York, I had a marketing firm. So I had a Rolodex with luxury and fashion brands, entertainers, potential donors. And when COVID hit, I was turning the chapter into my film producing chapter. I'm also a film producer. And as I was turning that page, I thought, what do I do with this Rolodex? I worked in marketing in New York for 13 years. I had a wonderful reach of people that could really help and make a difference in the lives of children battling cancer. And then COVID hits. And so that really pushed me forward to start something anew. I started investigating with hospitals across the nation. And every hospital had a similar pain point, and that the live events were on a hiatus. And those live events were donor-dependent dollars that sustained programs where you couldn't really access federal aid. Those programs are in the holistic space, whether it be art therapy or music therapy, drama therapy, field trips to give these kids exposure outside the hospital walls. And that really struck a chord. And I thought, now that's something I could really mobilize the troops. So when this white space was uncovered, I thought, okay, where do I take it? Where do I bring this event, and how do I make the biggest impact possible? Aspen was always a very inspiring community to me. I've spent about 20 years with my family going to Aspen, and during COVID, it was also becoming a very popular destination for wellness enthusiasts and jet setters alike. And the town was quickly growing, and I thought this was going to be the home for what we call Aspen Snow Ball. And that was our very first event. And to get that going, I hosted a small cocktail party in Aspen for the local community to share my mission and how I was going to build and mobilize the troops to help these kids and their families battling cancer. I met with a couple locals that told me their personal stories. And at that very cocktail, I asked them to get on the microphone and share that with the audience. We had about 20 items on a silent auction table, and those 20 items raised $200,000. And it wasn't because of the items on the table. It really was because of the mission and the purpose of why we were coming together to start something new in our small ski town. And with that $200,000, we paid the deposit for the hotel, and there was Aspen Snow Ball was born. And the following year, we had our first signature gala. So since our first year, we're now rolling towards our fourth signature gala. With that first year, we raised $1.5 million. And since we've raised $7 million for these kids to sustain programs, to make sure they have access to arts and experiences beyond the hospital walls.
There's a lot. I have several follow-up questions, but to that, because you gave a lot of really good tidbits. One thing, and this has never come up on our show before, so I definitely want to dive deeper into it. I love how you talked about your Rolodex and how you use your Rolodex for another purpose. So what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe doing a next act in their, in their career or professional or philanthropic journey to get them to come along for the ride with you?
If you don't ask, you don't receive. I've always been a firm believer in that. And I really do believe that if you build it, they will come. And I've produced many events and hosted celebrations. And I know that if you lay out a great plan, they will come. And if you have a mission behind it, you'd be surprised how many that would hit home. Doesn't matter what the cause is. If it hits you, it's likely hitting a lot of people in your community. And people really love coming together that are like-minded, they're mission-centric, and they leave with 20 new friends, right? You already have something in common, whether if you've been impacted by a natural disaster or a friend or family, or you've been impacted by something like cancer. So my suggestion is do it. You just got to do it. Have faith in yourself, have faith in your community, have faith in the people that are around you.
Fantastic. And in speaking of the community bit, the other thing that really I was really interested in your response was about how you did that initial kind of, silent auction that raised a couple $100,000. And it almost like when you were talking about it, it's almost, I don't want to call it a seed event or even an angel investor event, but it kind of almost kind of had that vibe a little bit because fundraising for nonprofits kind of is angel investing, in a lot of ways. So what advice would you give to someone who's trying to kind of do a kickoff event? Because that's an effective way to do a kickoff event. You basically had an auction, you had the right people in the room, and they gave you enough money to put the down payment on the hotel. So what advice would you give to an organization looking to kind of kick something off and getting the right people in the room so that you can, fulfill your mission further?
Yeah, it comes with a great invitation, a great location that really will draw people to come. And so get creative with that, whether it's, your local giant tree in the park and, or a beautiful home or a seaside cliff, right? Like get creative with that location because that'll really draw people in and have a great invitation, have a great plan and be ready to open up their hearts. So, come prepared with a great speech and maybe have a couple patient stories or a couple speakers that are experts within that field and really educate that audience and make sure with that plan that you have great nibbles and great cocktails because that really sets the tone of your organization so people really understand that you know how to entertain and they know what to expect when they come to your events in the future. A great gift bag or a partnership with a local organization or a great brand that is well known always helps also lift the optics that they're putting their stamp on it and saying this is worth your time and this is worth getting to know the organization.
What great tidbits and really getting community leaders behind you, is, a very key part of what you just said that I took away from that. And, one of the things you had mentioned kind of when you were talking about COSF is, partnering with other organizations and other hospitals. So, how do these partnerships determine and help fulfill the mission of COSS? And how do you determine which, hospitals or which organizations that you want to partner with?
Yeah, we're always looking around the corner for making sure that our dollars have the biggest impact possible. We consider ourselves a national organization. And this afternoon, I have another tour at a hospital in Orange County. So we're always looking around the corner for what's missing and what do these kids at this hospital in treatment have access to? What don't they have access to? So we really design an organization that's pretty nimble in listening to our partners. Our partners are hospitals. So we know that the dollars are being well spent. We know that there's a constant need. And we also know that these programs need to be sustainable. So as we tour these hospitals, we look at setting up endowments, and those endowments incur interest so they're fully sustained. One of the pain points hospitals told me were that they couldn't hire full-time art therapists or music therapists because sometimes the dollars dry out, an event is canceled, or maybe a fundraiser wasn't as successful as they sought out to be. And during COVID, a lot of foundations that sustain these type of programs collapsed. They closed their doors. They had high overhead. They were stretched too thin. They had office spaces. And so the space was really obvious of where to come in. And with that investigative outreach, we have a small medical advisory board that helps us point us in the right direction. So that's helpful. But we're really just listening to the hospitals and what these kids need. We opened an activity room in Children's Hospital Atlanta, where there is a music classroom, an art classroom. We hired full-time therapists. It's called the COSF Activity Center. And we're really proud of that facility. It's a brand new hospital, so very impressive. And it's great to come in and be able to offer that to the many children that state hospital serves. In Colorado, we started the COSF Fund for Advancement in Wellness, and that fund allowed them to also hire full-time art and music therapists, incur interest, and make sure that those jobs are protected and those programs are sustainable. So we're always looking around the corner. We consider ourselves a national organization, and we're going to keep marching forward until every hospital could offer what we think is important and vital to these kids in their healing process. And for us, it really is the arts. It's to get them out of bed, to get them motivated, to get them to learn something new and use their brain and fire joy and fire excitement. But that collaboration, that struggle to collaborate with their peers, or that struggle to create something new, like writing a script and doing a stage play or learning a new instrument. These are all vital experiences that young children need to have in order to continue to develop and grow. So not only to survive cancer, but to thrive after remission. So we really look at how could we give these kids the tools to really thrive, and not only look at the child themselves, but their family unit, the parents, their siblings. Their siblings are often neglected. They're often moving to new communities or new schools. And not only that, they're removed from their best friend, their sibling, who is often in isolation and has to stay in treatment, and they're not at home to cuddle with at night. So it really is about the health and wellness of the family unit at COSF.
Fantastic. And, I want to touch upon, you've mentioned a couple of times, that you all are a national organization. And, putting together a board for a national organization can often be a challenge. But talk about, how you were able to put together a board that allowed you to reflect that vision, that you wanted to think, big and think nationally. So what advice would you give to somebody to assembling a board to help you achieve, your vision and your goals for, the organization?
Yeah, I have a lot of advice for building a board. I'm very lucky in that I moved around quite a bit. I lived in Los Angeles, New York, London, and I was very philanthropic. I've been to charity events really across the nation. And when I started COSF, I had philanthropists that I was very close friends with on other boards and involved in other organizations. And so I invited and curated the committee and the board and we could get into the committee as well, but we really curated the board of philanthropists that come from different marketplaces. I had a philanthropist in Montecito, in Palm Beach, in New York City, in the Hamptons, in Los Angeles, in Newport, in San Diego. And I knew with that we would have an organic reach. And we're asking our donors to fly into Aspen, Colorado, a small ski town. So having that reach was really vital in building a national organization. And those philanthropists have been hit by cancer at some point, some way, somehow, and are really passionate and dedicated to what we're doing and how we're doing it. My biggest advice when you're doing that, on a national level, I don't think you necessarily need a committee or board that live all over the US per se, but you really want people that really understand your mission and your vision. And that's really key. And you also want to have people behind you that are going to be nimble and take your leadership in stride. The last thing you want is a board where they really don't understand what a board is. That could be problematic, and how they need to support its leader. That could also be problematic. You need to be able to move with steadfast tenacity. You need to be able to make strong decisions, and you all need to be aligned. And with that, I suggest looking at your closest circle of friends or supporters, people you've collaborated with, people maybe that have mentored you, people that you know have a network that maybe you don't have, or access to relationships that you would like access to. So when you're building your board, it's very integral that you look at each board member and understand what they bring to the table and ensure that you're checking every box.
Fantastic. And I'm glad that you kind of, you highlighted that people need to bring different strengths. It can't all be just everyone's kind of thinking the same thing, because that's how organizations can kind of get stale and maybe go sideways. But there was something that you had mentioned in the beginning of that answer about, we have this board and we've got to convince, and this committee, and we got to convince people to go to this small ski town of Aspen, Colorado. So, and that's, Aspen is a place where a lot of the attendees, I'm sure, have second homes. There's, people, we're based in Texas. I know plenty of Texans that go to that event. So what advice would you give to somebody looking to do an event where the residents may be part-time, or they visit every year for maybe a month, or, and getting them involved and getting them understanding that their second home is just as important as their first home?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the secret to getting people to fly is offering more than one night, right? A lot of these galas, you have a one-night event, and it's filled with entertainment. It's filled with fundraising. You have these little windows where you could actually connect and foster new relationships between all the entertainment and the fundraising. So a multi-day program, I think, really is a big draw for especially our donors. They want to communicate and within the community, they want to build relationships. And again, they want to look forward to seeing each other year after year. Aspen Snow Ball has become really a family reunion for a lot of us. We say COSF is a family. It really has that feel. And by the time the gala comes around, the energy is so high. There's no pretension. We all kind of know each other. We just spent 3 days together, and the mission is really understood. Within those 3 days, there's educational opportunities. There's opportunities for brands to come in and support a variety of events. And these events, again, bring our community together so they could network and foster connection. So our values really is community, connection, and transparency. That's a big one for us. But yeah, so the multi-day program really helped. So we have a kickoff welcome event at the Aspen Art Museum. It's really fun. Last year we had several performances, like Robin Thicke, Luke Kay, Chloe Jane performed, and we had great speeches, and that really kicked things off. Brooke Burke hosted it, our U.S. ambassador. And this following night, we had a panel event at the Wheeler Opera House, which is a nonprofit. I highly suggest you look into your nonprofit venues in your local towns. Often those venues are free, they're willing to support, and the costs are quite low in order to bring people together. And that's a really great place to start when you're building any kind of programming or hosting any events. So that educational panel is great. We have a few patients that share their experiences, experts, scientists, the founder of COSF. And I even left that panel inspired. So, bringing people together to have these conversations about your mission, I guarantee even you yourself will feel inspired, not just your donors or the people in the room. And that's actually a public event. So anyone in the Aspen community come learn about us. And we lean into that as a recruiting event to recruit volunteers, to recruit donors, to recruit local businesses to support our mission. Then the following night, we also have the night before VIP benefactor dinner. So at a certain giving level, you're invited to that dinner. We invite the media and celebrities that are in town supporting our mission. And it's very intimate. And we highlight some of the live auction packages and really make sure that people understand what they're walking into the following night. And we have the gala's after party, and then a brunch on that Sunday, a goodbye brunch, where people could come together and talk about the following or the previous evening and say their goodbyes. So we really champion and foster community. And that's really what's getting them to fly to Aspen, Colorado.
There's so much to unpack and so many good things to unpack. One is I absolutely love that one of the events is open to the public at large. It's a great way to kind of bring in, bring in, like you said, new potential donors, and get the outreach and reach of your organization wider, wider and broader. The one question I have for you is, what is the secret to creating constant fun over a multi-day event? Because that's something that I've seen a lot of organizations, if they do a multi-day thing, there tends to be one thing or one day that tends to be better than the other days. How do you create that consistent fun so that by the time they get to the gala, they're not like, oh my gosh, I got to go to the gala, but they're enthused to get dressed up, hit the blue carpet as it was last year, and go and have a good time?
Yeah, I think your programming with each event really needs to be a different experience. There's only so much energy your donors will have as well. So you got to be cognizant of not over exhausting them. Every year we're listening with the feedback that we receive. We send surveys and questionnaires, and every year will look very different. We want to really surprise our guests and wow them, and so it doesn't feel stale and it feels exciting. And even with the gala itself, we're constantly looking at how could we re-energize it and surprise our guests so they get a complete different new experience. With that, we have a different theme for the gala for the main event. We take a childhood nostalgic story and we tie that to the children fighting cancer. And the guests get really excited, dressed up within the theme. This year's theme is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Well, sorry, it's a nod to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but the theme is pure imagination, and the message is imagine yourself in the shoes of having a sibling that was diagnosed with cancer. But really imagine yourself that you too, with faith and hope and in a dream, could get that golden ticket. That golden ticket, in this case, being remission. So there's always a way that we tie that theme into our story. And
so talk about how you all select a theme. And the one thing I love about each of your themes that I've seen each year is there's an element of hope tied to it. And hope breeds fun. So talk a little bit about how you came about selecting, go about selecting a theme this year and how you came up with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, or the nod to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with pure imagination as a theme.
Yeah, so I recall the themes, and I'll start from year one. Narnia was a great theme. We were here we are in Aspen, where fashion is in abundance, and we're going through closets and wearing fur coats, and it's for kids that are fighting the Wicked Witch, and the Wicked Witch being cancer. And so that was a really easy tie-in with this adventure story. And even the auctioneer opened with, here we are all in Aspen. It's not just about fur coats and diamonds, but it's really about, fighting the wicked cancer. And then Through the Looking Glass is a lot of fun too, is, about Alice falling into this enchanting world and wants to just come home and be home. Last year was the Places You'll Go. It was a Dr. Seuss inspired theme, and it was about giving these kids a chance to go places and not just field trips outside the hospital walls, but again to thrive and not just survive. So that was a perfect theme for last year. And again, this year's theme is pure imagination with a nod to Willy Wonka.
That's really cool, and it's fun that each one you've kind of there's a different twist, but they're all children's classics in one way or another. That's kind of what's really cool about it is, whether, like with Dr. Seuss or Alice in Wonderland or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, those are all iconic children's stories that children of all ages really like and enjoy. And, one thing I want to talk about with the event in particular is leadership. So talk a little bit about how you go about selecting chairs and, especially with you, because you've scaled the event quite quickly and quite successfully. What are you looking for so that you can not only meet your goals, but also exceed them so that you can broaden your reach through the gala?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think every year we do have a little bit of new energy. We do have standards for each committee role or co-chair role. Those standards are making sure you're fundraising a certain amount, and with that, you're securing 2 tables, a couple auction items, and we're pretty strict on those benchmarkers. So we are lean and mighty, and with that, I find that those people that are on your committee, when they know everyone is meeting their mark and delivering, and they're dedicated, and they're passionate, and they're in those meetings or on the calls, then they will all reach their goals. But if you have, a bit of a crowded committee, and not everyone feels like they're carrying their weight, I think that creates a little bit of lack of motivation. And so I really recommend finding those people that are really passionate, really acknowledge them, and keep it lean and mighty. That comes with a lot of confidence. You don't need these oversized, out large committees. Sometimes I think that it's really about making sure every single person is fully engaged. With the committee, again, you want to really understand their reach, their ability to mobilize, ability to tap their personal and professional networks, and making sure all the boxes are checked, where you have a couple people with brand relationships, a couple people with maybe liquor and spirit relationships, maybe you have a couple people that have relationships in wellness or fashion and beauty. So you kind of have all your boxes covered when it comes to gifting, sponsors, and donations to offset costs, and to make sure that you're checking all the boxes. The better you curate your committee, the less work will be on the pressure of you and your team. And year 1, year 2, you're probably going to be pretty self-reliant. But year 3, year 4, your phone will start to ring from people that want to get involved and support, and that's when you're doing something right. But really curating that committee is key to a successful fundraiser.
I'm really glad that you brought up like the different types of things that certain people may have brand relationships and others may have like spirits relationships. And it's almost like an octopus. You want to make sure that your committee has different tentacles that they can reach in and pull into, to come into the hub and the core, which is the event itself. And one other thing that your event does every year is you have honorees. So I know 2 of them are the Philanthropic Impact Achievement Award and the other's Community Leadership Award. Talk about how you all go about selecting honorees for each event. And, more importantly, because a lot of them are high profile people. I know last year you honored Christy Brinkley. They're celebrities. How do you also get them to say yes?
And that's a great question. How do we get them to say yes? Well, sometimes they can't make it happen one year. And I would say be persistent. A pass is not a no. A pass is a maybe. And it is an opportunity for them to know your foundation, an opportunity for them to maybe follow your foundation, maybe watch it from afar, and just stay persistent, and that's a great way to get them to say yes. And as long as their values are aligned and they support organizations that touch your mission, I think they have a story to tell. It may not be in the exact space that you're in, but if they have a story to tell that really inspires your audience to give and to give back and to really inspire, then I think they would be a great honoree. With the Community Leadership Award, Impact Award, that's a really great award. It really is about someone in the community that maybe is a business leader, maybe they are a patron of the arts of the local museum, and that's a story to tell in itself, where they have a track record supporting other local charities. And we've been lucky in that the Aspen community is very generous, and there's so many potential candidates. And so it's really about, what is their story? How can we open the hearts and wallets? And who could they maybe draw to the event? And when I say draw, an honoree will sometimes get a table or have their closest friends get tickets and tables to see them be honored and receive the award. And so you really want to look at what they could anchor and what maybe they could bring to the table as well. On the celebrity side, we all know it's a little bit tricky to carve out time in their schedules. They often have families and commitments and full calendars for years in advance even. So yeah, that persistence really makes it a big impact. And you do have to offer, a nice experience for them to be able to come down and feel comfortable with your organization.
You gave so much good advice, but the one piece I was really, really, intrigued by was, if someone says no, it's not no forever. It's just a no, not right now, just because, your event's going to be on a fixed date. And if a celebrity has a calendar booked 2 years in advance, they may already be booked on that night, but that doesn't mean you can't go back to them the next year and ask them to be a part of it. So I thought that was some really, really sage advice. And one thing, that I found really intriguing that you all are doing is you're starting to do events in addition to the snowball in other markets. Like I know you recently did an event in Beverly Hills. So talk a little bit about, some of these other events and how you're selecting which markets you want to host those fundraising and awareness events in.
Yeah, that's the Beverly Hills event we just hosted was our inaugural garden ball, and that garden ball will be a traveling event. And that event is really designed to not just foster our mission or build relationships with the local media, but to reach new donors and within those markets. And so the garden ball will be a traveling event where we're planning on taking it to places like Palm Beach and the Hamptons. And we decided those markets because we already have a board member or two from those markets that could co-host those events. And then every year we have 2 or 3 community events. Those community events are not fundraisers. They're really a cocktail party to bring people together to share our mission. There might be a small silent auction for those events. But those community events we've done in Cannes during the film festival. We've done in Venice during the film festival there. And we had a community event in Aspen during the summer, last summer. And so in New York, we had a holiday dinner in New York that was hosted by one of our board members. So those are really driven by board members who could cover the cost of hosting those events. And so it really comes down to having a board member, a committee member that really wants to bring people together and sponsor that event, or have a relationship with a brand that will sponsor that event. But our signature gala is Aspen Snow Ball. It's our largest scale event. So we call it our signature gala because it's a black tie, it's a formal fundraiser, it's a seated dinner, it's a full program with entertainers and performances, and Garden Ball is a smaller scale fundraiser. So for us, it's about expansion, getting brand awareness out there. We're a very small community, and growing a sustainable foundation.
That's fantastic. Now, you mentioned, Snowball being, your largest signature fundraising event. What are some things that you can tease that guests can expect at this year's upcoming Snowball?
Well, we just announced Chelsea Handler will be hosting, and that's a great nod to being persistent. I've been asking Chelsea for 3 years to come with us to Aspen, and she is a skier, and the Aspen community, I think, adores Chelsea, so it's a perfect fit. Last year we had Jay Leno host, and I think that maybe helped kind of mobilize Chelsea, but she's been able to get to know the foundation and really watch us from afar. And so we're really excited to have Chelsea Handler. We have a couple honorees that we're soon to announce coming in, and the theme Pure Imagination. We're about, I think, 6-7 months out, so we're still getting to work on the planning. But we are excited to announce that Chelsea Handler's hosting.
That's fantastic, and she'll be a great follow-up to Leno. They were both late night hosts, in different networks, but both are equally funny and hilarious in their own ways. And I know we're coming up on time, but I want to end with this question. And given your background and that you've gone to events in so many places, I'm really interested in your perspective with this. But that is, what is one thing all successful fundraising events have in common?
Great guests. You got to have great guests. I would say that, you could have great production value, you could have really great entertainers, but really it's the guests that make any event. And it's the guests that make the other guests come back year over year. So having just a really great dedicated committee and community and a great reach. And, you really have to think about the media and all of that, making sure that you are getting some press, whether it's local, regional, or national, to tell your story and to socialize that. And I think the power is really not in the publication. The power is sharing it on your channels, sharing it in your newsletters. So different perspectives of storytelling is shared to your community. I think that's really helpful to get sponsorship and brands involved. And again, a great brand really puts a stamp of approval. A fashion or luxury brand, I think, really helps draw in an audience. But yeah, I think it really comes down to a dedicated community and making people feel like they're a part of it.
Absolutely. And people, and more importantly, people who want to be at an event, that energy is infectious, it's contagious, and it allows everyone to bring their A game, even if someone's had a really bad day. It's difficult to have a bad day when there's 500 other people in the room who are having a good day. And that energy and that community that you mentioned, perfect mic drop moment, and it's contagious. And Thomas, thank you so much for joining us today. This was really fun, and I really enjoyed hearing much more about Snowball and kind of your vision for the organization.
Yeah, thanks, Rob, for having me. I hope I gave enough secrets away and inspired some of your listeners.
Absolutely, and you did. And the Aspen Snow Ball, benefiting the Children's Oncology Support Fund, will be held on March 21st, 2026 in Aspen, Colorado. For more information, please visit cosffoundation.org. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.